What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another All Things Liverpool show. It's quite a bleak moment, isn't it? With everything to do with Liverpool, the way we're playing, the way we're performing, the results that we've been getting, and just everything to do with the club really since the first game of the season. But that means there's a lot to talk about, which is of course why we're here and why you all tune in, and why we're here to dissect what's gone wrong and what can possibly happen to rectify the situation. Of course, a lot needs to change, whether it's personnel, style of football, or just the general play and attitude of some of the players. So lots to get through today. We'll of course be talking about the game, unfortunately, from Wednesday night against Napoli. Maybe talking about the squad as well. It could be, it kind of can be the end of the cycle. Really, obviously these players have given us everything the last five odd years, winning the Champions League, Premier League, doing almost the unthinkable last season, but it could be now time to say that, all those games and all those all those performances have caught up to them, and they just aren't physically able to perform like how they have been. So we'll be talking about that and going into greater detail, and of course trying to think about how the situation can be rectified, whether that's putting in a few different other players, changing formation, which is something that I've quite called upon for the last couple of weeks. We're talking about formation change, putting other players in different positions, and seeing what that might do. Of course, I'd also normally be previewing the game this weekend against Wolves, but of course, after the sad passing of Her Majesty the Queen, it's looking quite likely that Premier League matches will be cancelled this weekend. Just seeing a bunch of reports from journalists on Twitter that matches are set to be postponed for this weekend. So unlikely that therefore we won't be talking about the Wolves match this weekend, as there won't be any games going on. So without further ado, let's get into the travesty that was Napoli on Wednesday night. And of course, in years gone by, we've never had a great record against them. In 18-19, it was a similar performance in 18-19, the year we won the Champions League, when we went to their ground. We lost 1-0 on that occasion, but I think Alisson made a bunch of ridiculous saves in that match to keep the score down, and on that occasion it could have been 3 or 4-0. Then of course we drew against them in the next season of the group stage of the Champions League, lost 2-0 again, and again weren't particularly great. And Jurgen Klopp in general, he's never won in Naples, even with Borussia Dortmund. The one time he did play there, he also lost that. So 3 games, 3 defeats. Obviously, omens are there, and omens exist for a reason, because they often go in the favor of the side who's got the advantage. But on the flip side, it is there to be broken. The curse is there to come to an end, and I was hoping that would have come on Wednesday night, but it just didn't happen from the first minute. I mean, as soon as I can't remember who played the pass, but as soon as Osimhen, who was fantastic, by the way, we should give him credit, and the whole Napoli team, because they really, it doesn't matter how bad or how poor we are. Napoli made sure we were very, very bad, and took full advantage of it, and made sure that we were made to pay for our errors. So full credit to them. Osimhen was fantastic. He absolutely destroyed Joe Gomez, Van Dijk as well, and that whole Liverpool defense, they just couldn't handle him. So props to him, and obviously someone that I think a lot of top clubs, with all due respect to Napoli, will be keeping their eye on in January or in the coming seasons. But from the first moment when he got round Alisson after Ali decided to come out and try to clear the ball, lucky on that occasion that it just hit the post. If it was a couple of inches the other side, it goes in, and we're 1-0 down within the first 2 minutes. But like in so many other matches this season, we don't take the early miss as a warning sign. We carry on slacking, carry on putting in half-assed performances, not pressing, not being aggressive, and again not outrunning the opponents, which is now a theme this season. I think it's now 7 matches this season where we've been outrun by the opponent, and that's something you would never ever think that could happen to a Jurgen Klopp side. Of course, again, we'll talk about this in great detail. Maybe they're tired, maybe they're finished, maybe they can't be bothered, which could be a case, and I really hope it isn't, but it very well might be. But even then, nearly went 1-0 down, got a bit lucky, but it's just dreadful again for their penalty. In the initial build-up, letting passes go through you. Fabinho, Gomez, Trent on that right channel weren't convincing from the first second, and then James Milner. I mean, I love Milner to bits. He is my favorite Liverpool player in the squad for what he's given, for what he's done to the club, for the fact that he's still going at 37 is so commendable, and it's something that should be praiseworthy for the way he's keeping himself fit, the way he's keeping himself going. But you can see now he's just not a starter. You can't be starting a guy at that age and expect him to be playing like he's in his early 30s or late 20s. It's catching up to him. He's not the same as he was when he first came to Liverpool, or the same when he was when Jurgen Klopp first came to the club, and it was telling again. Gave away the penalty. No questions at all. He puts his hand out, and the referee has a very, very simple decision to make. There's no even for a need for VAR. So disappointing. They convert the penalty. Good penalty from Zielinski, and it's a nightmare start. And when you go to these kind of stadiums, obviously Napoli, formerly known as the I can't remember what it was called, but now called the Estadio Diego Maradona, named after obviously the great man. But when you go to grounds like these, whether it's Dortmund's ground or PSG's, obviously with their fans, anywhere in Europe, the first job to do is keep their fans quiet. Obviously, Napoli, with how brilliant their supporters are, they were obviously going to make us feel very unwelcome, feel very hostile, and do everything they can to put us under pressure. And it was up to us to rise up to that and to make sure that they weren't in a position where they could have an easy ride, and where they could and where the players could give that crowd even more to get excited and even more to shout about. But that's exactly what we did after 5 minutes. Their crowd was brilliant, and they really put us under the cosh with their cheering whenever they were on the ball, and their support for the team whenever they were on the attack. So dreadful from us, and then 1-0 down, showed a bit of recovery. I think for the next 10 odd minutes, we started playing a little bit better. Salah, I think a lot of people have been talking about him over the last couple of weeks with his lack of goals. But I think if you looked at his performances more specifically, you'd be still saying that he's been one of our best players. And I think BT Sport did a pretty good analysis of him and how he was performing. But this season so far, not many goals, but he's created the most chances in the league so far. More than De Bruyne, which is saying something. But on this occasion, he was playing in the more the position that we were used to seeing him in a Liverpool team, in that inside right channel and closer to goal, in a position to shoot. So he did okay. Had a shot on goal, and I think their goalkeeper made a decent enough save. But we were slowly getting into it. I thought Firmino and Diaz were linking fairly well on that left channel, Robertson too. But every time they were countering, every time they were hitting that long pass to Osimhen with that pace, we always looked vulnerable. And then Gomez, before the second goal, I think fair play to him. Okay, I think he did the right thing by trying to get past Osimhen with a little bit of skill, trying to knock the ball around him and get us playing up at the back when he was being pressured. But he got it all wrong. It's as simple as that. Got it completely wrong, and it reminded me of Dejan Lovren's performance when we played Tottenham back in 2017. We also lost 4-1 that day, coincidentally, and it was the same thing. Gomez was weak. He was reading every situation incorrectly. Didn't offer any kind of protection to our defense. Took up so many wrong positions, and should have been 2-0. Would have been 2-0 after Osimhen raced through. I think it was the left winger. I can't quite pronounce his name, but he was unbelievable, and someone who I think will be playing for a really big club in the next couple of seasons. But his shot would have gone in had Van Dijk not been there. Again, another warning sign. And it just went worse from bad to worse. And then the set for 2-0. What can you say? Just what can you say? Trent walking, Fabinho walking, Joe Gomez walking, and it's at that moment when you've really got to question what is going on with these Liverpool players, because I know there's parallels to the way we're playing right now to 2021, where we obviously didn't have a good season there in that year. But on that occasion, there were mitigating circumstances. We had no defenders. We were playing Fabinho and Henderson at centre back. We had no fans in the ground. And obviously, we're one of the clubs who need our support. And on that occasion, you can understand why things were so bad. And whilst things aren't great right now in terms of personnel, obviously we've had a few players come back, which is great, but there still are quite a few injuries with Keita, Konate, Jean Matip just came back, Calvin Ramsey, a couple of players, Fabio Carvalho, another one on the treatment table, Jordan Henderson. But when you've still got a strong enough back five, Ali, Robbo, Trent, Gomez, Van Dijk, the defence that won us the Premier League title in 1920, that was the back five that won us the league that season. They were a shell compared to what they were on in that season. And it's really alarming, because when you're looking at Gomez as well, especially when you see that we've given him a new 5-year contract this summer, and I'm still a big fan of Gomez, and I think in the latter stage of last season, and even in the weeks this season and to the start of the season, I still wanted to see Gomez and Van Dijk, because I always felt that was the best partnership. And Gomez has had his chance. He came in against, I think it was Manchester United, and we'll forgive him for that match because he hadn't played much at all his first start of the season. Played against Bournemouth, routine game. Played against Newcastle, was a little bit better. And Everton, he was outstanding. He was really, really good against Everton. I thought he was probably our best performer on the pitch, the way he dominated that defence and kept us kept us a clean sheet. Played a very, very big part. But it was a total opposite against Napoli. And again, I'm not sure whether it was the conditions or it was obviously a very, very hot night. You could see the players' shirt. They weren't red anymore. They were a much darker shade of red. So it was obviously a very tough condition with that heat, that temperature, and the humidity, of course. Maybe that played a factor, of course, and we could take that as a reason. But there's no excuse to be walking in your penalty area. You have to be bursting a gut to make sure your goal is protected. And when you're a defender, it's the opposite for a striker. Striker scores a goal, they feel overjoyed because that's their job and that's what they are there to do. Defender, the opposite. You are there to stop a goal. You're there to protect your backline. You're there to protect your goalkeeper and make sure the ball does not find its way towards the goal. But that's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. And it was very frustrating, very alarming, and really, really concerning. Now you're thinking about, what does this mean for those players? Are their confidence probably be shot? Are they doing this on purpose? Because obviously, in this day and age in football, player power is obviously a big thing. And if a player doesn't want to perform for the manager, he will stop doing the things that the manager asked him to do. We've seen it with Chelsea with Thomas Tuchel. For me, I think that was a very unfair decision from the club. I still felt, okay, things weren't great, but he still had enough credit in the bank. He only won the Champions League just over a year ago, and won them, a few other trophies as well. But we've seen it. We've seen that other clubs where the players aren't running, they aren't performing. They maybe have something with the manager and they no longer want to run for him. I certainly hope that isn't the case, especially with a lot of these players. You're looking at it from last summer when we tied a lot of those players onto long-term contracts, and it was brilliant. I think that back five, is starting against Napoli, other than Gomez last summer, they all signed new deals, all signed until 2025, 2026. So they all got 3 or 4 years left. And you're looking at it now thinking, okay, this is quite alarming. We've given them a lot of money now, big contracts, long-term contracts, and all of a sudden they're not playing for the manager. So it's alarming in that situation how Klopp needs to try and figure out what to do with these players and how to get them back to the standards that they were setting just even like 6 months ago, really. Even the back end of last season, where of course things were a bit difficult, but they were still grinding out. They were still working really, really hard and doing their utmost best. But it's been the total opposite this season for pretty much every game, bar Bournemouth, really, where obviously it was a very easy game, and Bournemouth were never going to do much on that day. They've just been totally abject, and it just went bad from worse, from 2-0 and then 3-0. I think they had another penalty, which I think it was in fact 2-0 for this. It would have been 2-0 before the second goal went in. So Van Dijk giving away a second penalty, putting that stamping on Osimhen's foot again. No issues right there after the VAR call. Ali saved us, thankfully. He's one of the very few players who can keep his head held high so far this season. The only one who's actually still trying and still doing his absolute best and still bailing us out on so many occasions. Did it against Everton by making two brilliant stops. And then it just went bad from worse. 3-0. I think it was Zambo Anguissa. I think. Actually, no, sorry, that was 2-0. Zambo Anguissa got the finish, and then for 3-0 again. Really poor on our right side. Trent letting the marker go by him. Gomez being beaten far too easily, and Van Dijk on his heels and on his toes, and then an absolute tap in. Second half, things obviously got a little bit better, bringing on Jean Matip at halftime, even though we conceded right away. But from then on, at least it brought more assurance. I think when Matip came on, we were far more controlled, far more composed at the back, and Matip brought what Matip does. One of our best defenders. I still have the argument that he could have been better than Van Dijk had he not had those injuries for so many seasons. But he was great, a welcome sight. Hopefully he'll keep fit now for a while, and really help us shore up that defense. Obviously Diaz as well. I think he deserves a very, very strong mention. Fantastic, brilliant goal again. Top scorer, in fact, this season now. I think he's on like 4 or 5 in all comps. Brilliant finish, and again, one of the few players who we can actually smile when he's on the ball, because he will know he'll do something, try to beat a man, he'll try to shoot. Was very unlucky against Everton by hitting the post in that match. Hit the post on so many occasions, did it against Fulham on the opening day, and he's just a real thorn in that side. And for the lazy argument that people have been saying about our Liverpool missing Mane's been a big loss to us. It clearly hasn't, because Diaz has been playing in Mane's position, and he's doing just as good a job that Mane had been doing for those seasons when he was at left wing. So great goal from him, brilliant finish. Unlucky with the header as well. Again, showing the rest of the team that's what you call desire, that's what you call hard work and try and go absolute best. Unlucky with the finish, but if you try and your best, then more often than not, things will work out. And Diaz has shown that this season. He's one of the few players who's constantly been trying, and it's come with some reward. He's got a couple of goals this season, and deserves to be one of the players who gets some acclaims from everyone, really. So great goal, and then bringing on some players. Thiago, again, a very welcome side, and it brought me a big smile when he came on and the way he was playing. But it also gave me a lot to be angry and sad about the performances from those who are already on the pitch in the matches that he wasn't playing in. Henderson didn't do anything that Thiago did in that match. James Milner the same. Carvalho I won't include in that, because again, like Diaz, like Alisson, been one of the shining stars of this team. Really just been great. I can't fault him whatsoever, and he's 19 years old. It's not fair for him to be carrying this amount of responsibility in that midfield and doing so much when he's still progressing, when he's still learning his trade. Carvalho as well, I think he's done well when he's played. But you're looking at the others, Henderson, Milner, Fabinho, they've not done anything to help that team. And Thiago, when coming on, really kind of embarrassed them. And they should feel embarrassed because of the way he played and the way he asserted himself when coming on. Aggressive in the tackling, not shying from a 50-50. Clinical with the passing, trying to create attacks, trying to start moves, helping out his defense, tracking back, running forward, doing everything that the Liverpool midfield has been doing in the last couple of seasons. And Thiago equally will be as tired as those players. He's been at Liverpool now for 2 seasons. This is his 3rd, and would have felt the effects of the end of last season. But he has the mentality. He has the mentality to carry on fighting. And although yes, he has been injured, and that's maybe helped his recovery. But so have the other players. Someone like Fabinho, Henderson, and Milner have been without their injuries the last couple of seasons. But when they've come back, they've not been the same player. And Thiago, in that cameo that he had for 20, 30 minutes was exceptional, was everything that we know Thiago is and what he can do and what he will be. It's just now doing our absolute best to keep him fit, because when he's in the team, we are so much better, so much more controlled, and just look, the team that could be challenging for 4 trophies. It's not going to happen this season, of course, but when Thiago's on the pitch, it at least makes me feel that way. So overall, in Napoli, a dreadful result, dreadful performance. Very, very similar to the one against Tottenham in 2017, where we had the same scoreline, same kind of performance, and only a few players, putting up a fight and playing for the badge. At least on the bright side, you can look at a couple of things. The first is some players putting in some, a decent shift, the ones I just mentioned, and on the flip side, what Jurgen Klopp said in his post-match press conference, and he said a lot of things, and it was the most remarkable post-match interview I've ever seen from Jurgen Klopp, because obviously we've lost matches before, we lost matches heavily, but never have I seen him kind of like act in that way. He almost had to like pick. Rio Ferdinand said it very, very well in the post after Klopp gave the interview. Ferdinand said that Klopp was choosing very, very hard, was doing very hard to choose his words carefully, because he could have thrown the players on the bus, which I wouldn't have blamed him for. But if you do that, then more often than not, you'll get a reaction that's not positive. And Klopp was very specific, did very, very well to keep his cool in that matter, because I am no doubt that he would have been absolutely fuming with a lot of those players in the dressing room. Probably would have given them the hairdryer treatment and taken a page out of Fergie's book, and I wouldn't have blamed him either. And in fact, I really hope he did do something along those lines. But one of the takeaways from Klopp's post-match press conference was that he said we need to reinvent ourselves, and that's something that I'm looking forward to. I think a lot of us are looking forward to. Maybe a change of formation, which is of course something that I've been talking about for a while, and something that I feel is quite imminent, because I can't think that you can keep with this crop of 11 for anymore, just for the rest of this season. Even if we have another injury crisis, I'd rather see the kids come in than the likes of Milner or Gomez or any of those players who are out of form. Even Robbo and Trent, they need to be taken out for a while. I think Tsimikas deserves to have at least a run in the team. Give him 3 or 4 games, because I think for Robertson, again, I think he's the one where you can actually say he looks tired, and because I've never questioned his effort, and I still see him putting in his absolute best, but I generally think that he's just suffering from all the games of last season, and of course the games in June for Scotland when they had to qualify for the World Cup. They had a couple of very intense matches, so that again that would have taken its toll. So Tsimikas has to come in instead of Robbo, but Trent, no excuse from him. Really looks like he can't be bothered. Hopefully we'll see Calvin Ramsey come in the team sometime soon, and really just show Trent that you're just because you're very gifted going forward. And again, Trent was actually great going forward on Wednesday night. I thought he was one of our more creative players, but defensively not at it. And your job as a right back is to defend first, attack second. I know that's obviously different in this day and age, where defenders and fullbacks are supposed to attack and to contribute to the contribute to goals and assists. But when you can't do the basics right, then you can forget about what you can do going forward. So hopefully we'll see Calvin Ramsey in the team, and something that Klopp might consider and be one of his thoughts about reinventing ourselves. So we'll see how it goes. Of course, after that game against Tottenham, we went the next 3 or 4 months unbeaten. I think it was 25 games, something like that, in all competitions. And obviously on that occasion, it was a similar result, similar performance. So hopefully a good omen, and something that could potentially cheer us up in the coming weeks. But with this Liverpool squad, you also got to be talking about, specifically about them, just them as a player, and what they've kind of gone through since 2017. I think 2017 was like the first, was at the the start of the era where every of those Liverpool players started to come in. We had Mane, who just came in the season before. In that summer, we had Salah coming in. Van Dijk, of course, joined in January, and then the following summer, Ali, Fabinho, Naby Keita, of course, hasn't done very well. But you're looking at that crop of players and really thinking that, okay, they've given us 4 or 5 years of exceptional service, and if any of them leave in January, if any of them leave next summer, they will go down as club legends, as Mane has and is, as Wijnaldum, as Divock Origi even. But you have to be thinking that this squad could be potentially coming to its end. And there was a stat that I saw against Fulham on the opening game of the season. We had the oldest average starting 11 in the Premier League. And that's saying everything that you need to know really about this Liverpool squad and how it kind of is coming to an end. Because when you're looking at that team, Alisson, fine, no questions about him. Trent needs to sort himself out, but Van Dijk, now 30, maybe I'm not sure he's 31 yet, but on the wrong side of 20 at least. And you're looking at his performances this season. Again, I don't think it's a lack of effort. I think he still is trying his absolute best, but it just isn't working for him. And whether that's, again, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those reasons, you have to be wondering whether it's, it's kind of slowing down for him. And he's been the best in the world from 2018 to 2022, let's say. For 4 years, I don't think you could say there has been a better defender on this planet than Virgil van Dijk. And no one would have batted an eyelid, and no one would have questioned that, because he's been absolutely phenomenal for us. But you have to look at him, looking at Jordan Henderson, James Milner, Fabinho, Bobby Firmino, and even I dread to say it, and it was obviously something that I talked about a lot last season when Salah didn't sign the contract, but whether Salah is kind of performing like how Aubameyang and Ozil were performing for Arsenal when they got their new paychecks, and you have to kind of be questioning that, whether it's like mentality as well. And it's a real worry, because there's so many of those players who are kind of slowing down, and there's a lot of work to do in that position. And they are trying the club. Well, I won't say the club, but the players that we have brought in are obviously doing a lot to help and doing a lot to bring down that average age. Likes of Elliot, Carvalho, Konate. I look forward to seeing him back, and I think Klopp said he'll be back in the next couple of weeks, which will be huge. Calvin Ramsey, of course, we'll hope to see him soon. Simicast, of course, is in his mid-20s. Diaz, as we've seen, a fresh face, is absolutely brilliant. Joss has been fantastic for us since signing, and once he gets fully fit, I'm sure we'll see the same form from him this season. Nunez, of course, brand new player, someone who obviously hasn't quite adjusted to the team yet, but I have no doubts that he will eventually. So there are signs there that this squad is being refreshed, but it's still clearly, as we can see, and as we have been watching for the last 6-7 games, it's not enough. And these players, whether they need a wake-up call, whether they need to just be taken out of the team and given a long rest, it kind of seems that way. And you also have to think that it is coming to an end. Milner isn't going to be around for much longer. It's going to be any season now where he does retire and calls it a day. Henderson has been slowing down now for the last 18 months, I'd say. And I think that there was a brilliant documentary that I saw on the Liverpool channel called Jordan Henderson Is Never Done. And I still agree with that. I don't think Jordan Henderson is done, but he's not at the peak of his powers. And it's similar to Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard, as soon as he hit 30, and when on the other side of 30, he wasn't the same. He wasn't the same as he was. And that's understandable. Players can tire. And when you look at Henderson, the amount of energy he gave even, it is understandable to see him slowing down and not be the same player as he was a couple of years ago. Of course, he is still going to be very, very helpful for us, and he still will be helpful in and around the club and in certain matches and in games where you need to play a bit more tactical and a bit more differently. But in terms of starting matches, in terms of having an impact in the team, both offensively and defensively, I just can't see him having that kind of role for much longer. And I think we saw for periods last season when Thiago and Naby Keita were fully fit, that was the midfield pairing ahead of Fabinho. It was them two in those two positions, and Henderson was quite often on the bench and starting the lesser games, some of the Cup games, some of the Premier League games as well. So for him, clearly looking like coming towards the end, definitely not over over right now and won't be, I think, quite yet, but on the way down. Fabinho, it's difficult to say with him. Like, you know, whether it's mentality, whether he's just can't do everything on his own. And I do have sympathy for him. I think he's playing in a midfield where it's a little bit dysfunctional right now with Elliott coming in. Obviously, he's done great, but his role in the team isn't quite. You're not quite sure what Elliott would bring to the team. It's not like when we had Wijnaldum in the team a couple of years ago. You knew what Wijnaldum was going to bring, and you knew what he will do. And Fabinho clearly is missing that kind of player. You know, Elliott completely different, far more offensive. He definitely does track back and definitely does help out defensively, but not to the same level that Wijnaldum did, or even Jordan Henderson when Henderson was obviously a bit more fitter and a bit more stronger. So Fabinho, you can look at it in one circumstance that he's not got the help around him to really, you know, to really play that role perfectly, and he's doing too much, trying to put out too many fires, but instead isn't doing a great job in putting out fires elsewhere in the pitch. So for me, I think these players, some of them definitely need to be moved on, and I think that will be happening over the course of the next couple of transfer windows. Hopefully, obviously none will be leaving in January, but hopefully we bring players in January that can make an impact long term, and obviously right now, because we definitely need that. It's obviously I think it's quite a great thing that the World Cup is happening. You know, I don't think many of us were a fan initially that the World Cup was taking place midway through the season, but for us and for Liverpool fans, I think we're going to welcome it quite gladly and with a big smile on our faces, because we definitely need it. We definitely need that break. And obviously for some of our players who won't go into the World Cup, Salah, Diaz, you know, they didn't qualify with their countries. You know, it'll be great for us. And as well, I think the form of some of these players, they'll be lucky if they get called up. Gomez, I don't think he'll be called up. Trent, I think he's obviously in a big in a big risk right now, considering how many good right backs we have elsewhere. Trippier, Reece James, Kyle Walker, of course. So, you know, maybe Trent might be left home, and that obviously will be a great benefit to us. So a lot to do in that position, a lot to change, and really trying to move some of these players on. I think obviously by next summer, Keita and Oxlade will definitely have gone. I don't think either of them will be given a new contract or will want to extend their current deals. And that's pretty much it, really. So of course, we have to think about now what can be done to rectify the situation. And of course, we heard Jurgen Klopp saying a change in that needs to happen quite quickly. And of course, with the games that are likely to be postponed this weekend, it's quite obviously it's not great news given the circumstances. But from our point of view, quite timely that we're not playing this weekend, and we are going to have a little bit of a break for these players to rest up, to kind of recharge their batteries, and for Klopp to really analyze and fix what can go wrong and be given more time before we play again. I assume the matches next week in the Champions League will go ahead. So against Ajax on Tuesday, which will probably be the next match we play. A real challenge for us, and a good moment for us to reflect, to think about what we can do, what we can change, and how we can become our old selves again. So I think the first thing that will be rectified are the personnel. I don't think that the players who started on Tuesday night, I think quite a few of them will not be in the team on Tuesday. Gomez, the starters. I think Elliott might be given a rest. I think he should be given one, because it's not fair for him to be playing this many matches when he's still developing. I don't think Firmino will play. I think it will be Jota. I think Salah will still be in the team. Diaz, I think, is a shoo-in. There's no problem there. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 4-2-4 with like Jota and Nunes up top, and I think that'll be something that could work out quite well for us. Obviously, with Nunes with his aerial ability and the fact that we're able to, you know, knock the ball forward to him, his pace, and the fact that he's willing to run in behind, that's a big plus for us, and something that a lot of those other three don't really do. They often ask the ball to feet and make late darting runs rather than early runs that Nunes does. So I wouldn't be surprised in a change of formation, a change in personnel, playing 4 attackers and then using Thiago and Fabinho as a midfield double pivot. I think that would be something that I would welcome gladly, and I've been calling for it for a while, and something that we know we can do, given that we've got a few more players back from injury. And hopefully in the next couple of days we'll have obviously some players will come even closer, and whether any more are in contention, we'll see. Tsimikas, I think, as well, has to come in at left back, has to be given a good while now in the team. Give Robbo a break because he clearly needs it. It's too much for him, and I think Tsimikas does deserve a chance. Did okay against Everton. I don't think he was brilliant, but I don't think he was terrible either. Put in a lot of effort, and what was quite good defensively. And I think the most pleasing thing I saw from that game was that when there was an opportunity for Everton to cross the ball in, we finally stopped the first ball coming in. And as you would have known from these past episodes, that's something I've been harping on about for a long time. The fact that we don't stop the first cross, but Tsimikas did it on that occasion, and I was very happy to see it. So I hope that he'll be given a run in the team and given a chance to really show that he can be not a rotation option for Robbo, but someone who could even replace him in a years or two time, and really show Robbo that I'm not here to warm the bench. I'm here to try and take a place, and that might bring the best out of Robbo again. And we hope that'll be the case. Calvin Ramsey, of course. Unfortunately, again, I would love to bring him in for Trent right now, because again, with Trent, with his mental state, whether he can't be bothered to do it, to run anymore, it's obviously a big concern. Whether he's too tired, or is doing too much, it's clearly affecting him, whatever the reason is. But I think obviously he'll be playing the next match, which will be against Ajax. I'd like to see Ramsey in, and I hope he will be in, at least after the international break. Of course, I think after this weekend, next weekend will be the last set of Premier League matches, and there'll be a 2-week break. So in that period where Calvin Ramsey will obviously hopefully be at the training ground, putting in that effort, showing Klopp that I am ready to be playing, and I am ready to start ahead of Trent, and hopefully that will be the case sooner rather than later. So with that said, the biggest thing that we should change is the personnel, because that's where you can do it, really, because it's all well and good saying things and speaking to the media and speaking to your players in meetings. None of that really makes a big difference until you see it on the pitch. And I think it's obviously been 7 or 8 games now where a lot of these players, they clearly probably have been told by Klopp and by the rest of the assistant coaches that you need to do this, you need to do that, but they're not doing it. And right now, I think it's time to axe them, tell them that, you're not getting back in the team until you do exactly what we tell you to do, and show that you are ready to come back in the team. And hopefully that will be the case come Tuesday against Ajax, and hopefully we'll see a big reaction from the team. But anyway, that is all we've got for today. I hope you've all enjoyed this episode. Obviously, one that's not been particularly great to talk, great to be happy about, but an interesting one to see what can be done, what's gone wrong, and how hopefully things will turn for the better in the coming weeks. So anyways, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.